In this video, I'm just going to walk you through about using a gate. A noise gate is an alternative way to clean up the audio by using a tool in terms of plugin, and it saves you having to go through the audio and having to cut out every kind of in between hit. That's a long task, especially if you take a look at the bass drum, this kick drum here. If I zoom into that, there's lots of in between hits and things, and that's going to take a long time. So yeah, using noise, I'm just going to get a sample of the bass drum just to kind of loop, and I'm just going to go into the mixer. I'm going to call up the bass drum. I'm going to call up a gate. So I'm just going to go here and click on Dynamics, and then scroll on down to where it says Dyne 3 Expander Gate, and then select that. So this is the gate. My advice in terms of starting to use it and get an idea of how to use it is to set it so the gate is on straight away. So I'm just going to set the range down to -80. Now the range will allow the bleed back in of the gate, but so it doesn't cut everything off totally dead, because there's going to be information in between those bass drum hits, and if you're not careful, it'll end up being what we call chattery or jitter, and it kind of where the gate kind of opens and closes very fast. I'm going to set the attack as fast as it'll go. So at the moment, 10 microseconds. Okay. I'm going to set the hold as fast as it'll go and the release. The ratio I'll leave for the second, and I'm going to set the threshold all the way to 0. So at this point, this is what we've got. So that's the bass drum. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the ratio, that's how aggressive it's going to be, until I just get a bit of a blip. So that's going to be the bass drum there. There's no in between hits. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the threshold and start allowing more of the bass drum to come through and find get those transients going. So we've got the transient of the bass drum happening. Now what I need to do is I need to get the tail, or the kind of the actual the tail of the bass drum, and we are going to be introducing other bits of the bleed in. There's going to be hi-hat, there's cymbals and stuff going on in there as well. We won't get rid of everything, but we're certainly going to reduce it. So I'm going to move then the hold until I get a good tone of the bass drum. So I'm just going to go longer. So it's brought in some of the snare back in. I'm just going to go. And that seems like a good place to start. I'm just going to then open up the release. So the hold is how long the gate holds on for before it closes. And you can see it. So it's holding on for about 110 milliseconds. And it's closing within 10 milliseconds or 10 microseconds. I could just slow that down a bit. You can start hearing like a little knock noise. And I'm just going to open up the release a bit longer. So it's starting to sound better. It doesn't sound like the bass drum should do, because we're eliminating a lot of other noises as well. But when you start putting it in context of a mix, it'll kind of lose those kind of jittery things, because you've got the overhead information as well. So I'm just going to open up the range just to allow a little bit of the background in, just to smooth it. So I'm going to go over the top with it initially. And you can hear just in the background now, and if I compare it to what we had before, and I could maybe just open the threshold a bit more. Got to be careful, because I'm going to start letting in the snare as well. So, but as a starting point, that is a really good place to be, because then I can get into applying the EQs and stuff. The problem is when you EQ first, when you're applying EQs and you EQ the bass drum, you're also EQing that cymbal and the snare drum and everything else that's going on there as well, which can make it quite difficult to sort of isolate. And then you end up with really bright sounding drums because it's a combination of EQs across those different instruments. So as I say, the gate is something to experiment with. Set it up first so that you've got your range at -80, your threshold all the way, your hold, attack, release is set as fast as they can be, and then adjust the threshold till you start getting your transient, and then you can also then up the ratio as well. So let's see, you can see how aggressive that is, and it goes all the way up to 100 to 1, so it's a very aggressive. And then just start introducing the hold to get the tone of the whatever it is you're after, and then adjust the attack and the release time just to get a more consistency, and then just bring in the range. That will just allow eliminates potentially some of that jitter, and it will just allow a little bit of the bleed back in, but nowhere near as bad as it was.